And with these scary times of the pandemic, I found that it's taken a toll at times on my mental health and my well-being. Now, anxiety has been a major component of my schizophrenia experience for many years. It's almost familiar now, and I find that I need to do things to manage my anxiety in this time. And it's very important for people with mental health challenges like I have to know how to manage the fears that have become so prevalent in this time of the pandemic. With us today, fortunately, are two experts and thought leaders providing help and hope for people who live with trauma and anxiety. And one of them is Dr. Denise Kai. Denise, please wave. Yep.
Hi.
Yeah, great. Denise Kai is a One Mind Rising Star Award winner from 2019. She won the One Mind Otsuka Rising Star Award in 2019 for her work and her amazing proposal, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And she's also assistant professor of neuroscience at the Icahn School of Medicine in Mount Sinai. Also with us is Kyle Elliott, who is thank you, Kyle, for appearing today too. Kyle is a dynamic thought leader on LinkedIn, as well as a fabulously successful career and life coach. And he has lived experience of his own to share as well. So thanks to you both for being with us on Brainwaves today.
Thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you for having us.
For sure. Great. So, and viewers, if you'd like to post questions, feel free to post them at any time. We'll answer them at specific moments during this talk, and I'll let you know when we're going to do that. I'll display them on the screen, and we can respond to your questions then. But feel free to post whenever you think of something. Thank you. So, let's get started. So, Kyle, you're a survivor of a traumatic event.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as someone who's experienced trauma and recovered successfully, how do your memories affect how you manage your anxiety? And how do you work with those memories to help you continue to thrive in this time of crisis?
Yes, I love that question. I'm unique from a lot of coaches, and in that I do not just separate work and life. I think a lot of people try and have work-life balance, or this idea of work-life balance. And we're recognizing, especially now, that work-life balance just isn't possible. I prefer work-life blend. I learned of that from one of my mentors and friends, Shamina. And she said, really, it comes down to blending work and life. And we're recognizing, especially with, I think, 75 or 100 million of us just in the United States working from home, that we really have to blend work and life. And for me, that was really true after I was sexually assaulted in graduate school. I wasn't able to just say, okay, I'm going to go to work and be work Kyle, and then I'm going to go to class and be class Kyle, and then I'm going to come home and be home Kyle. It's just not possible. I can't walk into one space and then forget everything else happening in my life. And I think with COVID-19, we're seeing that to be especially true, that we can't just all of a sudden, and now even physically, we can't just say, okay, I'm going to go to work and have work and go home and have home. Because for a lot of people who aren't used like me to working from home, we can't just say, okay, I'm going to leave home now. But all of these things, our children, our partners, our work, they're all blending together. And something I've recognized, having been through a trauma before, I see COVID-19 as another form of trauma, is that I'm resilient, that I've been through tough times before, and that I can get through them again. So I know that for me and for anyone else who's been through trauma, that we're resilient and we're able to get through this, and we're going to get through this. So I just really try and look back at all those difficult times and I've had and realized, you know what, this will pass too. And I've built up a lot of really amazing, strong mental health muscles as a result of navigating that trauma before.
Mm-hmm. Kyle, thank you so much for sharing your experience there, and those are wise words and very helpful to hear. Thank you. Denise, from your exciting Rising Star Award funded proposal that you spoke about so well at the Music Festival for Brain Health last year, you are investigating an interesting phenomenon in neurobiology and how it relates to trauma. Basically, people remember events leading up to a traumatic event as scary, even though they weren't, those circumstances leading up to the event weren't scary to begin with. They take on a fear tinge in their memories. And how, based on your knowledge of neurobiology, you must have some insights here. But moreover, when you spoke about this at the Music Festival for Brain Health last year, you spoke with the passion of someone who cares deeply about developing new treatments for post-traumatic stress. Have you ever experienced traumatic events in your life, and how do those shape your memories and how you manage anxiety and cope with this present crisis.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brandon. First of all, thanks to the Asuka One Mind Award that funds what I think is really exciting research on how our brain processes traumatic experiences, particularly from a memory perspective. As a neuroscientist, I'm very interested in how we remember trauma, and in particularly how we can use our memories of past trauma to be able to help make decisions for our present and our future. And so you asked whether I've experienced personal trauma and how that's shaped my ability to cope in this current crisis. I would say that, one of the biggest challenges that I've experienced is how to overcome the trauma of also being sexually assaulted. And I think back to, more importantly, how I overcame that has really helped me to cope today. And I remember after being sexually assaulted, I thought my world had crumbled. And I remember being paralyzed in fear and anxiety and feeling completely like I lost all control. But a friend had something really important to say to me. And she said, Denise, say goodbye to your old normal and find your new normal. And those are words I clung onto. And for me, what that meant was redefining myself in a time of crisis and trauma and anxiety, and finding comfort in new ways. And for me, one of the things that was really helpful was developing routines. So really simple routines as getting out of bed, putting makeup on. It gave me back my control over my body and my life. And doing that every day, practicing that every day, even when it was hard, was incredibly helpful. And now during this COVID-19 crisis, right, we are all anxious. We are experiencing this traumatic experience together. And for some of us, it's really hard to get out of bed. It's really hard to manage the stress. And I think back now to that time of when I had to find my new normal. So I'm in New York, we're under shelter in place. I can't really leave my apartment. And so for me, part of managing my personal anxiety and stress is every day waking up and changing out of pajamas. And like, if I can change out of pajamas into real clothes, that's like a big win for me. And eating at the right times of day. And these little daily routines have really helped me take control back over my life and over my anxiety and stress.
That's fantastic, Denise. Thank you so much for sharing that, and powerful words to hear and to take comfort and strength from. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's recap. Kyle and then Denise, what are the few main takeaway points you'd like viewers to remember from what you just spoke about memories and coping with trauma in times of crisis?
Yeah, the first point I would really hit on is that it's key to work on trying to blend work and life and see how those two complement each other rather than attempting to balance them and have some sort of separation. I think that's really we've moved past that. And in order to thrive right now, we have to learn how those complement each other: work, life, love, all of those areas. The second is to recognize that all of us have experienced trauma and we've been through difficult times, and we're going to be able to get through this as well, and this will pass. And then lastly, I love what Denise hit on. I didn't even talk about the routines I have in place. So I'm excited. I think we'll touch on that later today. But I love those routines. So I'm excited to talk more about that as well, because that's been key in my own recovery as well, and really finding those opportunities to gain back control where I can in my life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the things that I would want to remind us is that in times when things are uncertain, you have to find your new normal. And a lot of that is finding your new normal routine, things that make you feel like yourself and that you are in control. And the other thing is something that Kyle mentioned, which is remembering how we overcame our past trauma and our past hardships and challenges will give us, strength and ways to recover and to find our normal.
That is so great. We are strong. We know
That's
that
right.
because we've done it before.
That's right.
Thank you. Okay, now it's time for showing some comments from the audience, the viewers. Thank you so much, viewers. We have Lee Roberson saying, awesome topic. Les Roberson, thank you so much, Les, for being on, participating with us today on Brainwaves, and appreciate the shout out. Thank you so much. And also we have from Carrie Bearden, who is a One Mind Scientific Advisory Board member. Thank you, Carrie, for watching today. She waves hello. Thank you, Carrie, for being here with us. Jill Vortek Katz.
Oh my gosh. Hi, Jill. Thank you.
Yeah.
For tuning in.
Yeah, thank you, Jill, for being with us today. Congrats, Kyle Elliott, for your bravery and sharing your words of wisdom on resilience. Hashtag resilience. Thank you, Jill. And Gail, thank you for watching again on Brainwaves. Really appreciate you being a regular on Brainwaves, and hope you're doing well where you are. I'll catch up with you later. Thank you, Gail. Fantastic topic. Thank you. All right. So on to our next section. Kyle, we'll talk about the present and how we cope in the present.
Yeah.
So Kyle, as I mentioned, I find that doing things that engage me in the present, like playing my guitar, taking a walk with my dog, seeing the beautiful, sunny landscape around me, help me to feel more calm and centered and balanced in these tumultuous times. Do you have similar things that you practice, similar activities that bring you a sense of calm and strength? And how do you use those to cope in the present moment?
Something I'm really big on is family time. So I spend a lot of time with my family. Right now, it's kind of been different with the shelter in place in the Bay Area as well. But it's calling my parents a lot, texting them, checking in with my grandparents. I make sure I call them regularly. Also, something that's really important for me is I'm a coach, but I have my own coaches and I go to therapy. So that's really key. Jill, we just shared her comment. She hosts an amazing Assemble network that has been amazing. So it's where 12 or so people every month come together for 4 weeks and they connect and share in community. And the goal is really just to build networks. And we were doing this, Jill led this and started it over a year ago, I think 18 months ago, before COVID-19, before people were stuck in their homes. And now that people are stuck in their homes, it's a beautiful opportunity to connect with people without having to leave and build those connections. So you can message me for more information. But really, the key to all of this, for me at least, in my own recovery, is to one, really focus on routine and stay consistent. And then two, to not isolate myself, not to just say, oh, we're in a shelter in place, I'm not going to interact with people, but instead to go out and find opportunities, connect with people. Maybe not go outside all the time, but instead find things like Jill's Assemble Network, call my grandparents. On Monday, one of my mentors, she suggested we have a FaceTime lunch. So really finding different ways to engage with people and not just isolate. And I'm a huge introvert, so not letting all my introvert tendencies creep up during this time, because that can be a natural tendency. So those are some areas that have been helpful for me in my own recovery and staying present and grounded, especially in this really anxious time.
It's great you stay so connected. I totally agree. That's important for me too. I think all of us will agree with that. So good. And not only do you need to care for yourself during this tumultuous time, as we all do, but as a career and life coach, I'm sure you have clients who are asking you for help and advice. And how do you advise your clients that you work with, and how has your coaching evolved to help them during this pandemic?
Yes. So a lot of the work I do is people reaching out. Almost every person who reaches out with me starts by asking about their resume. They say, Kyle, I need help with my resume. And then once I dig deeper and figure out what's going on, really it comes back to control. People focus on their resume because that's something they can control. They can edit it, spend 10, 20, 30, 100 hours editing their resume, their LinkedIn profile. And instead, I like digging deeper and saying, really, what's the real issue here? Is it your resume? Is it that you're stressed about, I don't know, the stock market and your retirement? Is it that you're worried you might get laid off? Is it that you already got laid off and you're panicking? So a lot of my work, especially in the last few months, has been transitioning from purely just focusing on the documents. Not that I only did that before, but moving away from just the documents and diving deeper and helping people manage that anxiety. Because if people go into the job search and networking and interviewing with anxiety, they're not going to show up as their best, most fabulous self. So I'm really working with people to find strategies to just add a little joy and hope to their days and say, okay, what are some ways, even when so many of us are at home, where we can add some joy and really just bring some happiness to our lives? So it's really shifted away from, not that it was ever transactional, but moving even more toward that transformational stage and saying, how can we really build relationships right now and integrate happiness in your life?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kyle. That's excellent, and it's so important to remember to find joy in your time in your life.
Yeah.
It's so easy to forget that, when we're so caught up in work and worried about watching the news and things like that. So thank
Mhm.
you for that reminder.
Of course.
And I see we have some questions coming up from the audience. We'll get to those in just a minute after Denise's turn here, and so sit tight. Denise, thank you so much again for being here and sharing your experience. Your research has revealed that our memories are fluid, meaning they can shift over time based on the meaningful experiences that we have. Now, the circumstances we're experiencing during this current pandemic are unprecedented, and people are experiencing stress and anxiety in extremely unusual levels. It's a tough time for all of us. Based on your knowledge of and this includes people that are close to us, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and so based on your knowledge of psychology and neurobiology, how do you care for people around you? How do you help them to cope with the present crisis?
Yeah, such a great and important question. So, coming from the research side, as someone who studies stress and anxiety, one of the most reliable ways to induce stress, anxiety, symptoms of depression is one, social isolation, two, unpredictability, three, sleep deprivation. And in this global pandemic of the COVID-19 virus, I think a lot of us are feeling this, right? Like we are the experiment now. And so I would say some real practical tips to try to mitigate some of the stress and anxiety caused by the circumstances of this pandemic is yes, to while you're socially distancing, but no to social isolation, right? So
Mm.
what Kyle said, reach out to somebody, make a phone call, get on Zoom and have some virtual hangout time. I know for my research team, we do a virtual coffee hour every day, just a place kind of to quote unquote to replace a water cooler that we all just go and chat around and build some community together. The second thing is unpredictability. So yes, it is really almost impossible to predict what's going to happen to health and economy at the global scale. But what Kyle and I talked about is that what you can do is to take control of your daily routines. And that becomes really important in building predictability and stability in your daily lives. And then the third is sleep. So we know that when we're stressed and anxious, that can alter sleep. And especially because we're not going outside and we don't have our normal cues of what time it is, it's really easy for us to sleep deprive ourselves. And we know that sleep deprivation leads to increased stress, increased anxiety, and can also trigger depression. And so, if you can maintain healthy sleep routines, that's really important.
Thank you, Denise. Those very wise words and based in science too. So thanks so much for
Yeah.
those tips. And yeah, I went to bed early last night. Well, if you count 10 as early, that's
Yeah.
a pretty good time. And
Mhm.
and then I got up this morning at a good time too. But I think that yeah, it helps me to get out, like you say, get out of bed, take off your pajamas, put on your clothes, and get
Yeah.
ready for the day. And it seems so
Mhm.
much more pleasant to do that when you've had a good night's sleep. And
Absolutely.
feel a much better day than I do when I don't get that much sleep. Thank you. Thank you. So Kyle and Denise, what are the few main points you'd like to reiterate so people remember them about caring for yourself and others during the present moment? You go first, Kyle.
Yeah, so what comes to my mind is to really recognize that we're humans at the end of the day and that we're people at the end of the day, and to provide some patience for yourself and recognize, you know what, this is a difficult time. And I love what Denise said, this new normal. I think not only when dealing with trauma that makes sense, but also dealing with COVID-19, and that
Mm.
the new normal is what we may have to accept. One of my friends recently, she was on, has a podcast called Two Quick Things. You can look it up. And she talked about dealing with COVID-19, how we work from home, and realizing maybe your new normal is that you're not going to be working 8 hours a day and be productive like you were in the office. Maybe you're going to get in 4 or 5 good hours, and that's what it's going to look like. So I think that's really the key takeaway here, is to recognize that we're human, to be patient with yourself, with others, and then to ask for help and say, you know what, I really need help right now, and reach out to other people. Have those Facebook or those maybe FaceTime with someone, and really just say, here's what I need. And don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, I need some FaceTime right now, or hey, let's have a conversation.
Thanks. Thanks, Denise.
Yeah, so I think overlapping with some of what Kyle's themes are is to be good to yourself, right? And so to do this, to mitigate some of the anxiety and stress based upon our research, is do not be in social isolation. Socially distance, but connect with people, and also check on the people who are living by themselves, who may be socially isolated in their own situations. The second is establish routines so that you have predictability in your life, and that helps with mental stability. And three is sleep if you can.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Denise. Okay, thank you. And now it's time for some comments and questions from the audience. First up is Ashley Milano. Ashley, thank you so much for your posting your question. How would you suggest blending work, kids, etc.? I'm used to wearing different hats at different times. Either of you, Denise, Kyle?
Hi,
Kyle, you want to go
Ashley.
first?
Yeah, hi, Ashley. What comes up for me is to recognize that right now is different, and a lot of people are also dealing with this unprecedented time. So I would highly suggest listening to Shamina Harris's podcast that I just mentioned. It's called Two Quick Things, and she talks about how it's going to look different right now, and everyone's dealing with this. Even leaders, I work with a lot of executives, are saying, I have never dealt with this before, Kyle. I've been working 20, 30 years. This is new. And Shamina talks a lot about that in her podcast and how all of this is new. So I would be patient with yourself and recognize I've never dealt with this before ever in my life. And neither is anyone else, the 7 billion plus other people on this earth. So I think the first thing is just to be patient with yourself and recognize that there's going to be a new normal, a new routine you have. The second piece that comes up to me comes to mind is asking for help, whether that's from your children and saying, okay, I need some help right now. I saw another career coach online saying, hey, they were having their kids help with their accounting or organizing receipts. And then third, asking for help from other people. So if you have a partner or any family that can help take care of your children, maybe even setting them up on FaceTime with a grandparent or some family member who can take care of them from afar. I know it's difficult to see people in person, but maybe someone who can watch them virtually in another room could be helpful. But really asking for help right now and being patient with yourself, because that's all we can do right now.
Yeah,
Thank you, Kyle.
absolutely.
Denise?
Yeah. So I am a mother of two. I run a research lab. We're still working from home and managing my team. And so I want to echo what Kyle said, which is be kind to yourself, be kind to those that you're living with, and to your employees or employers and colleagues. For me, what has worked is trying to set some kind of routine for my kids and for myself. So we have like a skeleton to fall back onto, that mom is going to try to work during these hours, and you're going to go play with tablets, which is everything you've ever wanted. And during these hours, mom will help you remote in and Zoom with your classmates, which has also been interesting. So I think, having some kind of structure that my kids can fall into and that I can fall into has been extremely helpful, but also grace that, as much as we would love to follow our daily routines and get everything checked off our to-do list, this is unprecedented times, and it's okay that we're only, 10, 20% productive.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that out if we needed it,
Yeah.
just to know it's okay. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ashley, for your question and for watching. Next comment, Carrie Bearden again. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Denise and Kyle, for help inspiring us in these challenging
Hi,
times.
Carrie.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. And then Trey Gabriel asks, will there be a recording of this available after? Yes, there will. It will be on One Mind's website. I'll tell you what that is, what the link is at the end of the webcast. And so, I believe it's been posted on our Facebook feed as well. But it'll also be on YouTube later on too. But we'll advise you on that later. Thank you, Trey, for watching. Brett Bullington has posted. Brett, thanks for watching, Brett. Good to see you here. Thanks, Brett and Staglin. You're welcome. It's my pleasure to bring these two amazing guests here to speak on this important topic. Thank you, Brett. Thanks for watching. Jerry Shear. Jerry, thanks for watching too. Thank you for broadcasting on this topic. Absolutely, it's my pleasure, and I think I echo. I think our guest would echo that too. Jerry, thanks for watching. Ashley Milano. Thanks, Kyle. Love the FaceTime grandparent idea. Okay, in response to your
And
great.
Something that just popped in my mind too, I was visiting my brother this weekend. He has young children. Something he's been doing, similar to what Denise said, is implementing ideas from school or thinking how you can kind of bring the classroom to your home. So they did PE at home and had their child watch a YouTube video of Zumba, and really thinking of ways to create that routine for your children. Another idea that his partner shared was laying out all your snacks for the day. So packing lunch for your children, packing snacks, and saying, here's what we're going to eat. We're going to eat at the kitchen table like you would at school, eat at the table, and really just following those routines. Because I know for me, that's something that's stressful right now is kind of the lack of routine. I work from home mostly, but I'm used to going to coffee shops. So I'm trying to still find opportunities to grab control where I can. So I can't go to the coffee shop. I can go to Starbucks drive-through and bring a coffee back home and pretend I'm at the coffee shop. So finding routine where we can, or we eat out a lot. So going and getting takeout and then bringing it home. So there's still some of that sense of control in that routine that we're used to. And I love what Denise said, that new normal. I think that's going to be like my tagline right now.
Awesome.
So finding new routines and new normals is so helpful, been helpful, especially just for me throughout all of this. And a lot of my clients, it's been, okay, what's your new routine look like?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you, Kyle. Janet Wooten. Janet, thank you for watching and participating today. I'm thinking that I'd like to orient toward growing out, relationships and growing CTTY, city. Can we use this crisis not just to make do, but to grow?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. Kyle had mentioned earlier that now we can virtually connect with almost anybody, right? And I actually find myself connecting with a lot of old friends that I'm in New York, they're in California. We normally don't get to see each other except on girls' trips or whatever. But now we have nothing between us because, well, we're at home all the time and our travel plans are all canceled. And so we actually have more time to reconnect. And it's been amazing how connected I felt even during the social distancing.
Yeah, I love that. What's coming up for me is I keep focusing on what really matters right now, family, working with my clients because I love the work I do, and pushing away from those items that were kind of just fillers or fluff before. I forget the rule, but I think it's we spend 20% of our time on the 80% that matters or something like that. And I'm noticing all those items that were fluff are kind of disappearing as I reprioritize how I spend my time. Or every time I leave the house, I'm like, okay, is this worth jeopardizing my health every time I leave? And I'm really being mindful of where I spend my time. And this has allowed me to reset and reprioritize and focus where I spend my energy and effort. So I think that's one silver lining out of all of this is that we're able to refocus on what really matters and recenter and re-energize those ideas that we have.
Thank you, Kyle and Denise. And I agree. I find it's nice to be able to to feel like it's okay. I mean, to take the time to spend quality time with family. I'm at home more. I can do that more now, and I'm prioritizing that more than I had been before. Thank you. Thank you, Janet, very much. Another wonderful question from Gail. Gail Ayers, thanks for the question. We're trying to focus on being proactive versus reactive. And I'm wondering if you might suggest some proactive choices that will help us manage medical behavioral healthcare treatment. Thank you. Thank you, Gail. Denise or?
Yeah. So, I mean, so in terms of managing personally, not at the global scale, but what we can do personally. So something I mentioned that sleep is really important, and it's shown that sleep can not only enhance your memory system, regulate your mood, but can also boost your immune function. And during this time where none of us want to go to the hospital, it's really important to be healthy as much as possible, and to sleep, also to exercise, and to maintain regular healthy meals. I would say some of these, again, going back to the daily routines, will help be proactive versus reactive and having to deal with other consequences of stress later.
What comes up for me, I love all those, is how so many organizations are kind of being forced to leverage technology quicker. So when it comes to therapy appointments or doctor appointments, or my friend's a nutritionist at a big hospital, all of their appointments are being moved to virtual. So I think that's something that a lot of organizations, they're being a little reactive. They're kind of, okay, we're being forced to do this. But I think something that's positive that's going to come from this is a lot of organizations are going to be using technology, and it's going to increase access this, and we're going to be seeing more people accessing these services and recognize that there's going to be less barriers after all of this as a result of more organizations just using technology. Especially, I'm in San Francisco. I know you're in New York, and it's a pain trying to go to the doctor or anywhere when you have to go fight with traffic, parking, all of that. So I think we're seeing that as a big benefit from all of this, and recognizing that a lot of these services are still available through this process. We might just have to access them differently.
Yeah, and I just want to echo what Kyle's saying, which I think is so important. One of the things that we're transitioning to is telehealth and being able to talk to or connect with healthcare providers virtually. And I think that might actually increase access if we continue to use this even after the pandemic. I think that would potentially have a lot of benefit to the community that needs healthcare.
Hear, hear. Thanks to both of you for your wise answers. Ashley Milano, and thank you, Gail, for your question. Thank you very much. And then another question, a comment from Ashley Milano. Yes, the lack of routine.
Yeah.
Commenting on what you had said. Thank you, Ashley. Looks like we have a question from Eve Yao. Eve, thank you for your question. Love the emphasis and reminder about kindness towards ourselves and others. Thank you guys for this webcast. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for watching, Eve. Jill Bortek-Katz has, looks like it is a question, a multiple point question. Thank you, Jill, for your question. Now is also a great time for us to think about what comes after COVID-19. What are we learning? How will our blended work lives look and feel different when we go back? Will we ever go back? Like, what will we want to change? Thank you, Jill. And any ideas, Denise or Kyle?
Something that pops up for me, I know for a lot of my executive clients, work-life balance has been something that's been interesting for them. A lot of them have a lot of support they can provide. They have nannies or daycare, all of that they're able to do. And I think for the first time executives, a lot of them are required to work from home and be around their children for 8, 10, 12 hours a day and really see what it's like to deal with work-life blend and attempting to balance those two things. And I think they're realizing what it's like for the average person, for the average employee, and they're getting a sense of that reality. And I think that's one huge benefit that my non-executive clients are saying, oh my gosh, my boss finally understands me. We're both humans and we're both people, and we're going through this together, regardless of how much you make or what your circumstances are. We're all working from home. We're all around our children. We all have to be in the same room with our partners as we're trying to like deal with the slow internet, all of this. So I think that's one thing that's going to come out of this is a lot more empathy and understanding and humanity through all of this. So I think that's another kind of silver lining I'm recognizing throughout all of this is really employees feeling like they're being heard and understood. And the response from a lot of companies that customers are receiving and employees is like, wow, these companies are actually, a lot of them taking it really seriously and they care about me as a human and they don't just see me as a number. I mean, there are some examples of companies that are like, here's the 18 ways you can pay your bills still through COVID-19. But a lot of other companies really are showing how much they care about their employees and their customers. And I think that's a big silver lining and people are going beyond just the profits.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you. Okay, great.
Can I add one thing on the research side? What's been really amazing is that, because we're desperately trying to find a vaccine for COVID-19 and desperately trying to find antibodies to boost resilience to this virus, people have really just broken down the barriers, and researchers from all over the place have come together in an open science way. And they said, we don't care who gets credit. Let's just work our asses off. Sorry. Whatever, I don't know if I can say that, work our butts off together and find the solution. And it's amazing how much progress has been made in gathering together medical supplies and gathering together all of these resources across campuses, across states, and across the world. And I hope that even when this pandemic is over, if it is, that we can remember how powerful we can be when we come together to work together to improve the lives of around the world.
Here, here. Open science is so important. Always has been, and even more important right now in this crisis. Thanks for calling that out. And Jill, thank you for your great questions. Another set of questions from Noel Kwiklinski-Serper. Noel, thank you for your question for watching today. What about those who are still having to go into their workplaces? Do you have any suggestions for how they can manage their anxiety?
For me, I know my father's a delivery driver for linens, so he's still having to deliver stuff. And then my mom and partner both work in healthcare. They're not directly dealing with patients, but they're still in administration, so they're going to work every day. And something that I've noticed to be really helpful is asking for what you need and speaking up and saying, here's specifically what I need and what would be helpful. And those people who speak up are getting what they need right now. I'm finding that employers are being particularly compassionate and really they're seeing people kind of, as I shared earlier, being really human. So I think asking for what you need and saying, okay, what's the real issue here? What is this anxiety about? What's causing this, and trying to figure out that real issue, and then asking for what you need can be really helpful to manage the anxiety. At least for me, that's been my personal experience with anxiety, is figuring out what's the cause and then asking for what I need to help tend to my heart and soul.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kyle. Excellent words. Okay, and thank you, Noel, for your question. Excellent. Okay, it's time for our next section. This one is on how you would advise leaders to motivate and care for the teams in this time of crisis. So Kyle, as we've talked about, many of us, if we're lucky, are continuing to go into work or continuing to work, at least from home during this crisis. And I'm sure there are many corporate and organizational leaders who are watching this webcast. How would you advise leaders to help best motivate their teams and care for their mental health during this crisis?
It's such a difficult time. So I think partially, as I shared earlier, and my friend Shamina shares on that podcast I recommended, it's called Two Quick Things, is recognizing that there's going to be a new normal, as Denise coined it, is we're going to look different. Our productivity is going to be different. So unless you're someone who's used to working from home all the time, your productivity is going to be different. And even someone like me who works from home, my productivity is different because clients, friends, people are reaching out stressed. When I go on Facebook, every single post is about COVID-19. So people are stressed and it's going to look different. The second piece that comes up for me is really asking your employees what they need and not assuming, because for each person, it's going to look completely different. So really asking people what they need and how you can support them. And then third, what I'm saying is that job seekers, that's who I mostly work with, people looking for jobs, is they're looking at employers and saying, okay, how are you acting right now? How are you treating people, your customers and your employee during this pandemic? And that's going to determine whether they want to work with you or not work with you in the future. And don't be surprised, and I see memes going around, but don't be surprised if in 3 months, one of the first questions you get asked as an employer during an interview by a candidate is, how did you respond to COVID-19? How did you treat employees? How did you treat customers? Because you can either really quickly gain the support of your fans, or you can lose it depending on how you respond.
Thank you, Kyle. And Denise, it's helpful for leaders to understand psychology as well as neurobiology, as you study, to help lead their teams as effectively as possible. So based on your knowledge of science, how would you advise leaders to help take care of their teams and help them stay productive and effective during this time?
Yeah, so actually, I'm just going to share a little bit of science that really just backs up a lot of what Kyle has already said. And when I think about, what are some really important things we can learn from psychology, biology for leaders and for employers, I think of this really popular theory of motivation, and it's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what this theory suggests is that there's this hierarchy or pyramid, that there are basic needs that need to get met before you can go on to the next psychological need, before you can have self-fulfillment at the very top. And this really echoes what Kyle says, that we have to recognize as employers, supervisors, that we are all of this, right? This entire pyramid, we got to boom, boom, before we can be our full creative and productive self. And so, the very building block of our needs are basic physiological needs. Do we have food? Do we have water? Do we have security? Do we have safety? And during a time where unemployment is skyrocketing, right? So people may be really having a hard time thinking about how to be productive and motivated and do their job if they're worried that they're going to get laid off very soon. And as an employer or supervisor, if you know there are things you can tell your employees to help them know what is, if their job is secure, if you can, you can pay them for that next month, that might help bring some security. So the next level after having your basic needs met is psychological, right? We need to have our needs of belonging, community, feeling like we're doing something important. And once those needs are met, then we can move on. And right now, it's really hard to feel a sense of belonging sometimes because now we're working from home and we don't have our colleagues and our daily interactions. And so something that we do with my research team, I think I mentioned, which is having a virtual coffee hour every day where people can come in and chat. And we do virtual game nights Friday nights. And so we still have regular, routinely scheduled online get-together so that we can take care of each other at the psychological level. And then if all of those needs are met, it's only then can we really think about the self-fulfillment of producing our, most creative, most productive work. And so I think it's really important for employers to know, just as Kyle said, that we're our whole being. And, unless these basic needs are met, it's going to be really challenging for us to be the most productive and creative self.
Mhm.
Thank you, Denise. Excellent. So Denise and Kyle, do you have some bullet points, a few bullet points to share for people to remember about how leaders can best lead their teams and manage them and their mental health and help them with their mental health during this time of crisis?
Yes. The first one for me is just to recognize that there's going to be a new normal, as Denise said, and that productivity is going to look different. The second one is to ask questions and ask what your team needs, because every team is going to need something different. Every person's going to need something different. So really ask questions and don't be afraid to just sit back and take suggestions from your team and practice humility. And then third is to recognize this is a really key time for employer branding. And what you do right now, everyone is going to be watching how you treat your customers, how you treat your employees. So be mindful before you take steps as an executive or as a leader in any decisions. And okay, maybe a step you take may result in a decline in profits right now, but the long-term trajectory is going to may result in happier employees, more profits later. So really be mindful of what decisions you're making right now.
Yeah. And I kind of want to echo, I know I just sound like I'm Kyle's like echo person, but because it's so good. And it's also based on science, which is that we are a whole being and that we have some of these basic needs that need to be met. And the only way the employer can know what those needs are is to ask them and to have conversations with each of the employees because everyone's going to have different needs.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
Thank you.
You too.
Very well said. Thanks to both of you. So great. Les Roberson. Now it's time for a comment from the audience. Les Roberson, thanks for your comment. Les, have you applied faith and spirituality in reducing trauma and stress during COVID-19?
Yeah, so for me, my spirituality is really important in where I find calm and peace and strength, and that's been true throughout my life. And so, especially during this time, I spend a lot of time praying and looking into this, spirituality.
Thank you.
Something that's been helpful for me is meditation. That's been key. I have a very busy mind, a very full mind that just goes. So something that's been really helpful, especially now, has been meditation and just taking literally 2 minutes to just sit and focus on my breathing throughout the day has been helpful. So anytime I'm feeling anxious, I at least try to remember, okay, let me breathe through this anxiety and say, okay, instead of anxiety, this is excitement, and let me just breathe through this. So that's been really helpful for me, especially during this strange time that we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, if I can add one more thing for me as part of my new normal and not being able to go outside, this isn't really faith or spirituality, but aromatherapy has been. So I every morning well, when most mornings when I can sit down at my desk and I'm not remote learning with my kids, I light a candle and I turn on my aromatherapy, and that kind of triggers my mindset for the day of
I
what
love
my
that.
goals are and my intentions for the day.
Fantastic. So blending the sensory physical experience with
Yes,
the spiritual calm that can
yes,
come from being engaged in the world around us. I mean, it's all
Mhm.
united. It's all underlyingly united in a certain way. And I found myself praying in gratitude for what I do have and what I
hmm
still am able to do during this time. Spend time with my family, and it's quality time. And so
Mhm.
that's a silver lining for me.
yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so I was going to say, so around dinner time now, one of our exercises every day with my family and I is we go around and we share one thing we're grateful for or something good about our day. For my kids, it's easy. They love all the screen time they get, unlimited snacks. And so we try to, yeah, as Kyle said, bring that positive mindset.
Mhm.
hmm Okay. Thank you, Les. Great question. Very apt. Thank you. Okay. And now for our last section. This is kind of an easy one, but very impactful, I believe it'll be. So basically, the question is I'll start with Denise. Denise, based on the
Yeah.
amazing science that you do, what would you say to viewers to help them have hope in this time of crisis?
Yeah, so really echoing a lot of the conversation that we've been talking about. First, to recognize that you are not alone in this. We're all this together, and we are all struggling with anxiety and different forms of trauma. And this may trigger depression symptoms for different people. And what I want to say to you is that I see you, I feel you, and I really want to encourage you to reach out to somebody. And really, the other thing I want to say is let's be good to ourselves. Let's be good to ourselves. Our mind, our bodies. Let's rest. Let's eat. Let's socialize. But stay 6 feet apart, and let's develop healthy routines for our mental health, and also check in on other people as well.
Thank you, Denise. And Kyle, what would you say to viewers who might be feeling anxious or scared or struggling in this terrible time for so many people?
Yeah, what comes up for me is that help is available, and it's available in a lot of different resources or a lot of different ways. So, two resources that come up for me is NAMI, NAMI, and the Mighty, where people can share their stories of recovery and resiliency. And then also recognizing that other people are available and can help you, and simply saying, hey, are you available to chat? Are you available for a Zoom or a FaceTime? And recognizing that if you're reaching out asking people to chat, they're probably wanting to chat too, and those people are super receptive. So I think it's really amazing how much we've been able to go back to our core values, or at least for me, my core values of family and community and connection during this time. So recognizing one, there's resources available, and two, the help is available, and you simply just have to ask for it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, guys. That brings us to the end of our questions. Viewers, if you have any questions that remain, you're welcome to ask them as I'm speaking, or you're welcome to go to our One Mind's website, which is going to be onemind.org. Hold on a second here. onemind.org/brainwaves, where you can view the recording of this webcast, and you can post questions starting in about 15 minutes after we end the webcast. I'll have that page up and ready to take questions, and Denise and Kyle will be available to at least once a day visit the page and post their responses to your questions if you have any follow-up questions. So thanks everybody for watching. Let me just get rid of this brainwaves thing here. Okay, because we already saw that. Les has a comment. Thank you, Les, for your comment. Les Robertson, thank you. Excellent input and much appreciative. Glad that helped you, Les. Thank you very much. So Denise, Kyle, you did wonderfully. So inspiring and so helpful. Thank you for being on Brainwaves today, you two.
Thanks for hosting us.
Yes, thank you so much for this powerful and really needed conversation.
Yeah.
Likewise, definitely. And dear viewers, thank you for watching and participating today. I wish you the best. We'll stay in touch, and stay tuned for another great webcast in a week. We're going to a weekly format from now. Next week will be Dr. Sam McLean talking about an amazing new program that One Mind is getting involved in to help frontline healthcare workers with their mental health and resource and supply needs. So we'll have more on that actually tomorrow via our Facebook and social channels. So thanks everybody for watching. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.